All right, hey everybody, we're starting exactly 1 minute early, which is probably an absolute record for me. Welcome to Uncle Matt's RPG Studio, and please subscribe to the channel. And also we have a Patreon over at patreon.com/Uncle Matt. And with those requisite little notes done at the beginning, let me introduce our starting panelists. We are going to have people who are dropping in and going out as we go along, because we're slated at least for a 3-hour show, since it's a big topic about the what gamers and specifically OSR gamers are going to do now that G+ is starting to shut down. So first off, and I'm just running in order of who I've got on my screen, we've got Ben Milton of Questing Beast, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you will see his channel off to the right. Is one of my featured and sort of suggested and cool channels to look at. And then we have Jim Wampler, and Jim is one of the partners at Frog God Games. The main reason he's here for this particular broadcast is because he's an expert on social media patterns and does website design and advice and consulting and so on and so forth. Wave hello, Jim.
Not an expert, but I certainly have an informed opinion.
Okay. Then we have Larry Hamilton of Follow Me and Die. And so Larry is here. He's been working on a lot of the various options and thinking through what all is going on from the perspective of somebody who uses G+ interconnected with a blog and with other social media sources, which is how a lot of people use it. And then there's me, and I am by no means, I'm almost not a G+ user. So my role here is really just as moderator. When you get a bunch of people together on one of these things, there are both times when everyone falls silent and you have to ask a question, or times when people are talking over each other. But my content here is really only as somebody who is a slow tech adopter, and so I may ask some of the stupid questions that people would otherwise run across. So my role here is going to be relatively small, and also monitoring the chat room where we already have lots and lots of questions. So to get things started, most of the chat room questions that we've got are about MeWe, because that seems to be right at the outset. There's a huge wave of people going to MeWe as being the closest simulacrum to what it is that is done by G+. And here is Brendan Strachek.
Hey.
And so Brendan also is here as one of the people who sort of is on top of what's going on with all of this, and is talking back and forth with people, and sort of one of the sort of hubs of the discussion that's going on about the G+ migration. I was just saying that, Brendan, that most of the questions people have asked in the chat room have to do with MeWe, and so I was explaining to anyone who's not familiar with sort of what that is. I am going to have their product director, Jason Hardy, on a show tomorrow to talk specifically about MeWe. So this is the time when anybody who needs to trash on their format or methodology or anything, now is the time to trash on them, because I'm going to, obviously be fairly polite with him, especially since he's not the top guy, and his bosses will hear if he says anything that's a major misstep. So don't want to put anybody into the middle of a bear trap.
Yeah.
So what I want to do, so for the moment, given the fact that we have lots and lots of questions about MeWe, I'm going to put those to the side momentarily to sort of get us focused on the beginning phases of the discussion, because I think that the first order of business is to talk about G+ as the place where people are leaving from, and talk about the reasons why people were on G+ as a way of informing the question about what are we looking for. And I'm not trying to unite anybody. I don't have a dog in this hunt. I don't have a plan on this. Larry, let me go ahead and start with you on the question of what are the sort of needed, what is it from Google Plus that people are going to be trying to emulate, and to what extent do you see that possible, just in a general sense, without delving into, the specifics of Discord and
Sure.
MeWe?
I think in general, the good parts about G Plus that everybody liked, including the parts that Google kind of throttled back. Like search used to be a lot better in G Plus than it is now. Now you have a hard time finding information of a specific post, or at least I do. I've heard other people have a similar concern. The ability to have these communities is a great thing, because you can, everybody that's interested in a particular game can focus on that game. The ability to follow somebody without them having to follow you, which is the opposite of the Facebook and the MeWe model, where you can't really follow people without them friending you, at least on a certain level. Circles is another big one that people like. That functionality wasn't as easy to use because that's one of the things they throttled back. And then the ability also to have collections where you group together similar content. So if people don't want to see what you think about a particular topic, they can unfollow that topic, but follow the topics that they are interested in what you have to say.
Isn't that the same as circles?
No. Collections is information on a given topic that you say, okay, I'm going to post everything about this topic in this collection. And it's independent of the circles.
Okay.
And everybody that follows you is automatically part of the new collection. And if they don't want to follow it, they just unfollow that.
Yeah, collections are under the control of the viewer rather than the publisher.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, circles is the other way around. Circles is, I want these people to see this. Collections is, here's what I'm offering. If you don't like it, don't look at it.
I'm taking notes on that. There are going to be a couple times in this show, probably many times in this show, where I'm ducking down and writing notes on what people have said.
And those are the high points.
I think that also we shouldn't overlook the ability to have longer form text posts.
Oh, yes, long form text.
That might actually be one of the biggest things that differentiates it from like the Twitter or Mastodon or similar services like that.
That's a very, very good point. That's the reason I don't use Twitter, is that I always discover that I'm 5 characters too long and I can't figure out which 5 characters to take out to maintain the thing. So
yeah, you end up with those ridiculous, my thoughts on X part 1 of 12.
Right, exactly.
And following conversations on Twitter is a nightmare because everyone's replying to like different posts and there's no like threading. It's a nightmare for long discussions.
How well does the threading work on G+?
You can't reply to individual replies, right? You just have a post and then there's just a long thread of replies, but you can tag individual people to reply to those people, but you can't do like sub replies.
And it appeared to me from the very short look at MeWe that that's the same on MeWe, that you can't.
Right now it is.
Okay.
No, they do actually have a threaded reply. I think it only goes down 1 level though.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it's actually kind of difficult. Currently the interface makes it a little bit like it's small. So
it collapses it so that you've got to open it up to see what the replies are.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was 1 or 2 things I noticed that I felt worked fine, but they were clunky to figure out. Anyway, but we'll get more to MeWe, and in fact, in some ways, I want us to focus on some of the other alternatives, simply because MeWe has kind of instantly taken the forefront. But let me go through. Did anybody else have any things about G+ that you think are key to evaluating other possibilities?
The integrated Hangouts was a big part of it.
Events as well.
Well, I can speak to it just sociologically, which has absolutely nothing to do with the technology, except by individual user preference, which is that some segments of OSR fandom gravitated towards G+, while others gravitated towards Facebook, and some, salty dogs are still holding the fort back in the old forums that we all used to use. And that impacts users, because in that case, it depends on what you're interested in. If you were a Dungeon Crawl Classics fan, for example, the large majority of that fandom was all located on G+, not Facebook. Although there were presences in both places.
Yeah, and the OSR got split partly just because of time. Google basically came out before Facebook was really big, and then Facebook pulled a lot of those people, and it ended up. And that is one of the things I'm concerned about going forward, is that that's basically going to happen again, where you have people split into multiple places. So that's going to be, again, I don't have a solution to it.
Well, fragmentation and congealing of social networks is a phenomenon that's been going on for centuries. It's just new technology, same thing's happening.
Mm-hmm. So we've got, let me take a look now at the, Bad Mike has mentioned Twitter, and so has Ben. And what's the, if one's evaluating Twitter as a place, because Google Plus does two different things, really, in terms of the usages of people. You've got the people who just have a monster that they wrote up, and they want to put that up, and you can do that very easily on Google, and then people can find it, and all of these things interact, the threading, the circles, the collections. And then you also have people, like Larry, in your case, your primary activity is a blog, but G+ is the way to funnel people who are not looking directly at your blog and let them know what you're doing. And that sort of notification function has also been a very big thing about Google, and it tends to remain at the forefront. Whatever it is you last said tends to remain at the forefront longer than it does on Facebook, because in Google, people are sort of looking into and out of your world there, whereas in Facebook, it's sort of whatever gets dished up in front of them on the buffet.
Right.
I bet that's not just true for Larry, because Eric Tenkar just posted something very along similar lines, measuring where his hits to his blog were coming from, and G+ was by far the most numerically.
Yeah, I think it, to a large extent, replaced the use of the feed reader for a lot of people. So, older OSR very heavily blog-based, and so people would, use Google Reader or whatever their reader was of choice. And then Google Reader went away, and also people just started relying on people posting their blog posts on Google Plus more.
I think that's a really insightful point, and it's actually something that right before the broadcast that Larry and Jim and I were talking about, which is that that Google really replaced the RSS feed. And I even posed the question of, well, what if people were to go back to RSS feeds? But in this community, of course, people are advocating going back to the Angel Fire bulletin board stuff. So.
Well, I think it's all about the user engagement level also, right? It's like the hardcore people who are blog authors are probably already still using a feed reader, or at least a lot of them probably are. But for the slightly more casual people who are just information consumers, then the social media interface is just a lot lower effort. So I think it increases the range of participation, at least by an order of magnitude.
I would agree
with Google Plus, you can talk to the community directly. So if you have an interesting idea, you can just type a couple sentences into Google Plus, and almost all of the big OSR people will see it and can comment on it right away. Whereas making a blog post, that's going to take a lot longer, and a lot fewer people are going to see it. You have less direct access to all of the creators.
And then if you amp that up, of course, you get Discord, which is very fast-moving, real-time stuff. I mean,
Discord is a fire hose.
Yeah. So what are the? I was going to say. So what are the thoughts about Discord? And we have one right there. It's fire hose.
It's just too much. You can't keep up with it. Because if you get into more than one channel, they're all going off at the same time. There's no way to do it.
One nice thing about MeWe is that if you have if you start a group or whatever they call them, community on MeWe, they all have built-in chat rooms that work just like Discord. So if you like the whole Discord chat room thing, those are built into each community. So you wouldn't have to do both at the same time. The nice thing about Discord, I suppose, is that it has built-in voice chat, because it was originally designed for people playing video games who wanted to voice chat while they were playing. So
yeah,
that's
I ran
really
into
nice.
that one because I was playing Elite Dangerous. I never would have stumbled across it, you know, through the regular gaming.
Yeah.
Just lost the thought that I had. Now, what I have not seen on MeWe, and this is because I haven't spent the time on it yet, it's not because they don't have it, but my thing was, where do people put their post when they write up a monster and put it in there? I mean, it's not in one of those chat rooms.
That's right, Matt. Ask the basic important questions. Where does my monster go?
Yeah, well, that is the key freaking question, is if someone writes a monster, you know, that's what the DIY OSR community on G+ was 99% about, was, you know, here is a piece of information for you to refer to, and here it is. And that's what accomplished, you know, Brendan's point about you could put something up, you know, and people would see it in an in its full form, rather than the first couple of sentences of your blog post that contains your monster. And so that was key, that on Google you could just put up a thing and it would become searchable, possibly not searchable well, but it would be searchable. It would be permanent for people to find. It would be there when they look for it. So far, I haven't seen that on MeWe. Ben, it sounds like you've been looking into it.
MeWe works exactly like Google+, where if you have an interesting thing, you can just create a post and it's there. You can make it as long as you want. The main problem is that it's not searchable because everything is private.
Right.
And so people outside MeWe can't see it. Yeah.
I think it's searchable within your network.
Within your network, okay.
Right, yeah. So if you're not connected to the person posting the cool thing you want to see, you're never going to know.
Right, and so like I think, I don't know actually what the breakdown is, but a lot of people on Google+ have sort of accepted the default public mode, which makes their stuff more available and more searchable, which is probably better for discovery. There are a lot of people that post only to private circles. Like I'm one of those people on Google+. So right now, if you search for, you know, some rules discussion that I posted and you're not in my circles, you also won't find it. So MeWe just kind of enforces that right now. And I think there's some discussion I heard from the developers. They're working on a public posting option, so that would probably work better for some people, but the existing structure doesn't actually seem to be that different from currently what it is on Google+. So again, I don't know how good their search is really.
Depending on which option you pick. Yeah, so I mean, that's actually, I'm talking with Jason Hardy on a show tomorrow, and he's their product director. He's the person who's been the source of information about what they may develop next, and so I'll be able to pose that question to him. It's kind of funny, you know, when he went onto a group, and there's a group, and let me see whether the description of the show is showing here. Yeah, so there are some links down in the description of this show that I've put up, and one of them, and the reason that I put them there is I'm going to mix up some names. There is a MeWe group that is about the RPG Exodus, and there is also a G+ group about the RPG Exodus, and so I'm just going to call them the RPG Exodus groups, but there are links to both of them down there. Jason went into the MeWe RPG Exodus group and was instantly inundated with lots and lots of questions. So hopefully we'll be able to frame some of these things, some of these questions a little bit, you know, but that also indicates that MeWe has the capacity to become a fire hose, just like Discord, because that's exactly what happened to him when he got on there, was that people just completely blew him away with, you know, questions. So there may still be
but
that.
you don't have to use the chat. A lot of people are just turning off the chat because it just fills up the screen and are focusing on, you know, what their individual contacts are posting and what's being posted in the groups.
And we've got a thing from Mark Clover, who I think CMG is Creative Mountain Games. And he has saying that in terms of the way MeWe works, he says it seems to work best when folks are in multiple groups and are sharing material into those groups. And that's one of the interesting discussions that we're probably going to come up with, is that, you know, at some point people are going to land on a format for how we do things, whether that's sharing stuff into a group or whether it's sharing stuff more peer-to-peer. And that's something that probably won't develop, assuming that MeWe is where most people go, that won't really begin to settle down for several months before people kind of arrive at the way that, we do things to find us. Brendan, what do you think about?
What's the question?
In terms of how people are going to organize themselves when they're on MeWe.
And I think it probably works mostly like Google Plus as is right now. The major difference is the lack of permanent links to posts, which makes things feel a little bit more transient. But even at the beginning of Google Plus, I think that we probably forget how long it took some of the social norms to develop. Like I remember it was sort of unclear whether it would be rude to post links to your blog posts or whether that would be seen as too much self-promotion. I mean, like it still is in a lot of Reddits. You can't post links to your own blogs. And there's some tension about that on Google Plus when people spam to like 10 communities at once, sort of looked on negatively. And I'm not sure if the exact same norms will emerge on MeWe or whether something different will. My guess is that since we already have the experience with Google Plus and the platform is pretty similar, apart from the way the chat and the groups work, the norms will probably transplant pretty well, assuming people will use it.
Yeah, well, I think people probably will. And on that note, we've had E.T. Smith join the chat, and he was one of the people that I particularly wanted to get on here. I was just talking about the couple of locations, one on MeWe and one on G Plus that I've got links to down below. And E.T. is the owner of the group on Google Plus that is helping people sort of assemble and talk about these issues and where they're going to. It's subdivided into a Rolodex system and so on and so forth. E.T., say hello to everybody and tell us a little bit about the way that you're organizing what you're doing right now on G+. Can you hear me? No? Okay. All right, we may be having some technical difficulties, E.T. You're moving slowly, and I'm not sure if you can hear me or not. We'll come back to that. When you're able to. Okay. Technical difficulty on that side. Anyway, so there is that G Plus location where there is the discussion about people going and where they're going to.
I'd like to enlarge the discussion, if I may, because we've been focused and that's where I would have started with do-it-yourself and that level of content creator, but there will also inevitably be users who will want to promote their indie company games all the way up to bigger third-tier publishers. You know, everybody besides Paizo and WotC will be on there wanting to promote their games, and that's and the consumers for each tier of that. So that's a whole Venn diagram of potential users for the platform with different needs.
Yeah, and there are the definite different needs. Ben, in terms of the way that you've been using G+, you've got a somewhat different approach into it than a lot of people because you're part of the Gauntlet network. And then, now weren't you? I thought you were affiliated with them. Okay.
What's the Gauntlet network? Like the podcasts?
Yeah, I thought that they. Okay, well, never mind. Drop that whole question. So you use G+ in sort of the notification mode that I was talking about with Larry as well, except that your outbound location is a YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so how is that different, or is it from the way that people are interacting, how the bloggers are interacting?
I don't think it's significantly different. I mean, all I really do is when I make a new video. I just posted a link to it on Google Plus. I don't think there's going to be any real difference between that and what I would do on MeWe. Because I only do that maybe once a week. The rest of it, I'm just talking about just different RPG stuff. One thing I was thinking about is that there is a platform that would be a 100% replacement for Google Plus, and that's Facebook. But no one wants to use Facebook because Facebook's just a garbage fire. It has so many problems with it. But Facebook does every single thing that Google Plus did, or you can make it do that if you wanted to. One of my concerns with MeWe is that we don't know if MeWe is stable, right? It could close up next year.
Right. And
whereas Facebook probably won't.
Yeah.
And it's free now with some add-in subscription for secret chats and so forth, but they're going to have to keep the company alive. So where's the money coming from? Because either you've got data mining on one side to pay for it, or you've got subscription service on the other side. Money's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah, they right now they're promising that the standard use will always be free. So I suppose they could change their mind on that, but it seems like the freemium stuff is what they're banking on. I don't know if that's a sustainable business model or not. It certainly seems to work pretty well for some games.
And I think there's going to be, that's the question, is what is it going to turn into? Because, for example, there's people raising the issue, whether it's correct or not, but saying that, they're saying that it's ruled by extremists, and in some cases they're saying it's by the extreme left, and in some cases by the extreme right. But the thing being that whether that's true or not, if it becomes known, if it gets a reputation as being a politically oriented site, then the people who are on there doing something totally non-political are going to end up being painted by that brush. We were, again, in the little discussion we were having ahead of time, it was like, if you were a Reddit user on there talking about playing Civ 4, when that whole Gamergate thing broke out, all of a sudden the fact that you were on a Reddit argue with that brush. Okay, E.T., can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can
Wonderful.
You hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Okay. So we are getting a little bit of static. Can you make sure your thing is plugged in all the way, first off? Okay. But now I can't hear you. Nope.
How about now?
Yeah, that works perfectly.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. As soon as we couldn't hear you when you messed with the plug, I was like, okay, it's the plug. So when you tried to get in the first time, I was telling people, first off, we've got a link down at the bottom here to your Google community, and what you've been doing is sort of the role of the caravanserai in the Middle Ages, when people were doing a caravan. Obviously, you can't all leave at the same time from the city walls with everybody properly loaded and the wagons in the right order. You had a place outside the city where people went to and got themselves organized, and that's kind of the role that you're playing in G+ right now. Talk about what it is that you're doing there.
Well, it started out from a pretty selfish motive. I saw the announcement that Google Plus was shutting down, and everybody in the gaming communities I followed had immediately the same.
Whoops. You've frozen.
I just didn't want to see everyone scattered to 100 different places and then either never hear from them again or have to go through the effort of having 100 different online accounts in different places just to keep track of them. So pretty much it was just a place of I wanted to say, everyone come here, have a discussion, figure out where your communities are going to go, then go there en masse. Since pretty quickly people settled on MeWe, I have to say that objectively it's a success. I would have preferred that a different site get chosen, but at least I know where to find people now.
Mm-hmm. One drawback of MeWe has just become very clear from the chat room. I posted the link to the MeWe group that's doing sort of what you're doing ET only. It's the inflow sort of site.
Right.
Well, apparently, when people click on that link, it doesn't take them there. You need an account to use that link, and it's pulling a lot of people in to the last chat that they were in, apparently. So that may be a real issue, and we will bring that. I'll bring that up with Jason. Is how do you do links?
I think people just need to also learn how to use the chat versus the feeds, because like the feeds are pretty intuitive to me, but the chats are less so, and there seems to be many of them. So, but it seems like you could just ignore them, but that might also be ignoring one of the one of the new strengths available on that platform if it ends up being where people sell.
And one nice thing is that it actually has 3 separate feeds. It's like there's one feed that's just all of the posts that people make, one feed that's all of the posts from the groups that you're in, and one feed that's just all of the chat rooms. So you can choose which feed you want to look at. So that's kind of nice. But I mean, the main problem is that MeWe was designed specifically for small communities of people who just wanted to, excuse me, who just wanted to talk to each other and did not want anyone from the outside world being able to see what they were doing. Like that's why it was designed. So they'd have to radically change some of those things to make it work for.
That's an interesting point, because that's the whole thing with social networking. It happens in stages. There's the micro level, then the meso level, then the macro level that makes data mining worth the company's time and effort. So you're talking about it's ideal for micro networks.
I mean, I don't see that as a huge challenge. Maybe it's just because of how I use Google+, because once your networks get sufficiently large, then even though it's technically all behind a garden wall, there's this sufficient mass, critical mass of people that sort of accumulates. Like I think that my current Google+ is everything I post, I've got 4,000 people in my outbox and about 1,000 people in my inbox. A lot of those are inactive, but like, you know, if I post something that's interesting, it's relatively easy to get attention to it. And the fact that absolutely none of that is public doesn't seem to cause any problem. And like I know Zach Smith uses Google+ pretty much the same way. Everything he posts is private as well. I mean, it's trivial to get access because you just ask him to add me to the circle. And same thing for me. So yeah, I mean, I don't see that as a huge problem.
And we do have one question in the chat talking about the Matt, that I haven't dug into MeWe, and that's absolutely correct. One of the things that I said right at the beginning of the video is that my role in this is as an outsider on the whole thing. My role here is just to moderate with the experts. I don't have a suggestion that I'm trying to make one way or the other, and then we're sort of moving in and out on that. So. Okay. And I sort of broke in on that to remind people that I'm not trying to, not to see the role that I'm playing as being something different than what it is. Okay, so where do we pick up that thread from before I was saying that though? What's the next, Ben?
The next step of
Of the general discussion about using it. Okay, well let me since what we're doing here, since we've got a long show and we've got a lot of people who are coming in a little bit later, let me do this. Let me run through some of the stuff that we have talked about, and so first of all, we're not advocating MeWe here. All of a huge amount of the discussion is about MeWe, but I'm gonna talk about that with Jason Hardy, their product director, tomorrow on a follow-up show. We have talked about the search capability that existed on Google and that exists on MeWe and in other sites. The way that communities operate. We've talked about the ability for long-form text. We've talked about threading and how that works a little bit. We've talked about integrating Hangouts and events. We've talked about the fact that Google basically was a hyper-powered RSS feed. The fact that MeWe does have built-in chat rooms. So that's sort of where we have rolled around to in terms of all of this. Can
I throw out a topic there?
Yeah, go ahead.
I actually have to leave in about 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay.
And I think that one of the things about this particular moment is not just that it would be nice if everybody found a new home to go to and be able to stay in touch with each other, but also there are opportunities for new capabilities. So like one of the major things that drove the adoption of Google Plus originally was the Constant Con Hangouts integration. And right now, what I see is that one of the major social technologies or innovations in gaming is Twitch and streaming and the communities of viewership around that sort of thing, which I actually haven't seen discussed very much around the Exodus. It's more like, where can we find a substitute Google Plus? But it seems like that is a big opportunity and potentially a way that more people could get access to the community or participate in the community in the same way that commenting on Google Plus expanded the potential circle of engagement from blogs, which requires a much higher level of commitment, basically. Mm-hmm. So I don't know exactly how that, I mean, none of the options that people have been talking about really cater to that, but it seems like something which is worth thinking about.
I think that's exactly where I would hope we end up, and I'm almost certain that we won't. But I think, you know, what you're saying is core. Most people are going to approach this with the question of how do we duplicate Google Plus, and that's why I'm sort of trying to push the discussion of what do we want, because that's, you know, they're not necessarily exactly the same things. There may be room for improvement on different things. E.T., what are you seeing in the discussion on Google Plus in your area about people asking the question of how can we actually improve what's going on?
Unfortunately, I think it is generally people are focused on how do we get to a place that is as much like Google Plus as possible so that there's not really the burden of dealing with the change. Some people have addressed it, and it has brought up certain things that were discussed years ago, basically back when Google Plus was starting to become the dominant channel for these sorts of discussions. And maybe they'll have a chance to take root again. That is something I'm hopeful for. But generally, this discussion I've seen has been focused on what the risks are and how to get the functionality people have become accustomed to.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm seeing the same thing. And I think part of the question is that, you know, anytime that you're talking about opportunities, one of the difficulties with opportunities is that you don't know what they are yet. Mm-hmm. You know, they tend to prove themselves out. And that was when people moved to Google. You know, we can look in retrospect and say, hey, Google is an amped up RSS feed, you know, that allows you to put it right in front of people. But that was not, people didn't think of it that way at the time. They were just like, ooh, here's this thing. Mm-hmm.
Well, right. Some of it's just going to have to shake out, and we'll find out. We'll learn. We'll all learn together.
There's also the fact that kind of the community conforms to whatever vessel it ends up in.
That's a very good point.
The community in the discussion changed its shape to what Google Plus allowed it to do. It didn't go there and say, oh, these tools will be useful to what we want to achieve. And so that's probably going to happen again. Wherever the communities end up moving, the nature of their discussions will change to match the barriers they're comfortable in.
And sort of talking about that whole format and fitting the vessel too, there is a real outside the box idea that's being proposed by Courtney Campbell on the chat room. And what he's pointing out is that Twitch has got quite a bit of functionality that can be used as well. And of course, and I don't think Courtney is the first person that I've seen raise that, but he's got a very good point that it actually does have a lot of this functionality, but it doesn't look anything like it does you know, when you're looking at it on MeWe, which is relatively close to what Google does, you know, the interface is less familiar. Is it?
That certainly addresses the possibility of streaming communities around that. But I think back to your original example, how do you share your monster?
Yeah.
Does that look like? How do people comment on it? How do people find it in the future? All that sort of thing. Like there are feeds and profiles and things like that, but I think using them in that way is maybe not obvious. Maybe it could be hacked, but or reappropriated.
Yeah, I was thinking recently about YouTube specifically, and how YouTube, and I guess Twitch. I'm not on Twitch as much, but I understand Twitch is huge. That video in general is the forefront of RPGs, right? That's where all of the engagement with RPGs is right now, by and large, is in video. I'm on YouTube. You're on YouTube. Hardly anyone else from the OSR is, and you know the problem with that is that it's a lot of work. You need to have equipment. You can't just put up a monster, really. But like the other idea I was thinking of was looking at Reddit. Reddit has a lot of pluses and minuses. And one idea was just try and take over the RPG subreddit. That's a huge community that has hundreds of thousands of subscribers.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Well, there's been some progress on that front actually in the last year or two. I remember there was it was a year or so ago. Everyone just started posting the best blog posts from the OSR onto the RPG subreddit, and every one of them was just getting upvoted through the ceiling. And after that, we started seeing a little bit of change. Sorry, go ahead, Brendan.
What do you think the catalyst of that was? Do you think it was the ENnies exposure or something else?
It was before the ENnies.
Yeah.
I think it was anyway. But it was like the OSR has reached enough of a critical mass that most people in the mainstream at least have heard the name before. And then when you show them good enough articles, they get genuinely excited about it. Because even though we're all familiar with a lot of the classic blog posts, 99% of the RPG universe has never read them. So there's a huge possibility to open that up to more people. A lot of people are on Reddit. I mean, what I was thinking of was instead of taking over RPG or trying to convert it slowly, a new subreddit where you could only post blog posts from the OSR as you created them. So it would be a forum where you would just share the things that you were making on your own blogs, and then the upvoting feature would sort out the really good ones. So if you sorted by all time, you would see the best OSR blog posts ever, and then by month you'd see the good recent ones, and then all the discussions could happen in the comments underneath each of those. And I was thinking the benefit there was that it would drive people more towards long form writing, where they're writing long, more thought out blog pieces and then having discussions about them, rather than the way that Google Plus is now, where people sort of fire off much shorter social media type posts and then have discussions about that. So I mean, it would be different than Google Plus. It wouldn't replace it.
Yeah. I mean, I think the killer there on Reddit. Reddit is a great place to share the monster, that you wrote up, but it is not a good option. In fact, it's, as I understand it, pretty much impossible option for you to be talking about what's going on your YouTube channel, or for Larry to be talking about what's on his blog because of the issue about linking.
There's no issue with linking. You can link to anything.
Well, but it's just norms in terms of the communities. Like there are some Reddits that are actually quite strict about not wanting self-links to your blogs. And I think RPG, like our RPG or what you refer to it, I think is actually like that.
Yeah, the rule is once a week. So I post my own stuff on RPG, but once a week is their limit.
Okay. For
your own stuff.
So that would be very limited to somebody who was blogging 3 times a week. If they were, I think that kind of rate's unusual, but.
That's the rule for that subreddit. You could, in theory, create your own subreddit that had whatever rules you wanted.
But I mean, I see, this is the thing. I don't think creating a new thing is a viable option right at the moment. Because, for example, I tried to address this issue, what was it, a year, 2 years ago, with the old school gamer radio idea of doing a website that acted as a sort of an aggregator. And it's too technologically difficult to do it at the level that we were trying to do that. I don't think anybody would be, I think even on the level of let's start a new subreddit, I think you would have the problem of, first off, you would have 6 people do that. And then you would end up with, wars between the fan groups of the two of them. I think I think right at this point in time is going to have a lot to do with what it's too late, I think, to craft an entirely new solution. Now, I may be wrong about that. It would be cool if I'm wrong about that, but I don't see a way of doing it, and I've done a thing where I ran into the difficulties with it before.
If that was going to happen, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
If that was going to happen, this is the period it'll happen, because the standard is being taken away. People are more open to considering other possibilities.
I agree.
I understand it is difficult, but this is the period where it can take root.
It's important because the early adopters will set the initial pace, exactly as you suggest.
I know over on the G+ rocket ship page, I think it was Stan Shin posted that he was considering doing something because of his past experience in large software products, and asked what everybody wanted to see, and it was basically all the good things about G+, but making a new thing, and he said not from scratch. I'm not sure what he'd build it on, but that's still a huge undertaking, and where's the money going to come from?
Yeah, I see the point about like a Reddit in particular being one place. I know like Zach S has set up like a forum as one possibility, like an old school forum, an old style forum rather. And he also set up a Discord. But yeah, the main problem is trying to create one like siloed place that was moderated by one or two people could create the possibility for further fragmentation. Whereas one of the nice things about Google Plus was it was highly distributed and it had asymmetric following. So you could just follow different people and they didn't have to follow you back. And you could just sort of create your own group by just choosing which people you followed rather than having to buy into like one forum or something like that.
I've heard a couple of people use the term silo, but Larry and Ben, both you guys use it. Ben, what do you mean by siloed as a jargon term?
Yeah, just like something with garden walls, as Brendan said, where you're all locked into one place, people outside can't really see in, and you're all together in on one platform, usually under the rule or the moderation of a certain people, right? So like Google Plus is not moderated. You just post your own stuff. If people don't like you, they block you or they just unfollow you. And so what you see just depends on who you decide to follow. It's a lot like Twitter in that sense, right? But it has longer form posts.
Right, and any time that there's the siloing being done, again, we've got Mark from Creative Mountain Games pointing out that you are at the mercy of the admins and the moderators in that. And, and the fact of the matter is there's already, I'm talking about the OSR, there's already Dragon's Foot out there. But, a lot of people won't go to Dragon's Foot because they, either don't like the aggressiveness of the fans there or they don't like the moderation or whatever it might be.
Yeah, there's actually like 4 or 5 of these alternatives that have been around for a long time and arguably sort of birthed the OSR. Knights and Games and the OD&D forum and RPGNet and RPG Site, right? There's a lot of these, and but they all have the problem or the properties of forums. And Reddit shares some of those also. It's a little bit more flexible, but it needs the moderation also. Well, I actually need to get going, everyone, but thanks for having me on.
Thank you very much for being on the show, Brendan. I'm sorry we didn't have more time to talk and get the back and forth going, but over, I think we're going to be seeing the discussions, and so we'll all be in touch.
Yeah, and I'm always available on Google Plus until it dies fully.
Go down with the ship.
Bye.
Bye, Brendan.
Bye, Brendan.
2 things occurred to me as part of this discussion. It depends on what side of usage are you. For example, people like Ben and myself, we're wanting to put out, hey, this is stuff I'm working on, but we're simultaneously, like everybody else, consumers. And it's the people that are strictly consumers and are not necessarily producing content want to be able to find the content, and we as producers want them to be able to find it. So I think it's serving both those needs is going to be the biggest challenge.
Sorry, I'm looking over at the chat. One of y'all answer.
Can I do what I do and express an opinion? I'm sorry. Because Mark Clover's thing brought to mind for me that just like those of us, most of us, have seen generations of rules being written that in a way are trying to address the problem of bad DMs and poor players, which you can't write rules that will make a bad DM good or a poor player good. I mean, everybody, this is Jim's recipe for happy social media use. Set your expectations correctly. I mean, I like the discussion we're having. However, people are people, and they're going to get into MeWe or whatever and continue to be human beings. And no technology or social media platform is going to fix human beings. Not to be a Debbie Downer. Because Mark's remark about, what about admins and moderators with agendas? Well, you're going to run into those no matter what platform you use.
Well, that's true, but I think one of the things is that is specifically the problem going on with the idea of the existing old school forums that are out there. I do not think people will make any sort of mass move to Dragon's Foot, and I like Dragon's Foot, but there are many, many people who do not like the way that things work. And Brendan pointed out that some of that's a feature of forums in general. People who are there a lot learn. They know each other a lot. They begin dogpiling on anybody who disagrees, with one of their friends, and it begins to turn into, this sort of very adversarial setup just as a result of the structure of a forum. And on the other hand, there's a benefit to a forum as well, and it tends to be long form posting, and it intuitively does a lot of the stuff that we're saying are, maybe a problem with MeWe. Here's Jay Murphy.
Hey, Matt, thanks for the invitation. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. It's good to have you.
I just want to parse the discussion between the advantages, the technological advantages and social networking advantages of certain platforms and, sociology itself. I mean, and it cuts both ways. So what can you do about the part that Mark Glover was talking about? Well, we can all just be the best DMs and the best players we know how. So we can go into MeWe, as the politest, kindest, empowering, answering questions to newcomers kind of guys we could be, and help shape its initial formation. That was my point. Off topic as usual.
No, that's one of the reasons that I wanted to have you, in here, is to keep us honest in terms of not over focusing on technology, right at this point, because like Brendan said, there are some big opportunities out there. And I, for one, happen to be skeptical about the ability to grab those opportunities at this point in time, because I think they would have had to have been grabbed earlier for that to happen. But maybe I'm wrong. It would be great if I'm wrong about that. So, just hopefully the G+ community is able to coherently move, with ET's help of providing a place where they can get together. Jay is going to go and brew some coffee, and that reminds me that my coffee, hold on, however many people are watching, I'm going to test the temperature on my coffee. Yeah, it's pretty old. But yeah, so, that's,
you rolled a 4.
So yeah, what I was saying about ET, when all of a sudden I was distracted by the concept of coffee, was that's that's really your role right now, because nobody else on the, someone has stepped up on the MeWe side in order to work at the intake, but you are the person that has become the central figure in getting people organized on the outbound setup.
Don't make me think about that too much. I'll panic.
Panic on, man. That's great footage. It's the case, though. I mean, sometimes you just end up in a situation because you did a thing. I mean, that's how I ended up. Yeah. Being somebody that people watch on a channel. This is just long ago. I did a thing, and so that's sort of where we are now. One of the interesting concepts would be what would happen if you were then to turn around and make a MeWe page and try and migrate all of the people who are following your G+ circle simply over to your MeWe page.
That sounds like too far a reach. My intention was I never thought that I could mold the community. There's simply too many voices and intentions involved there. Thousands of people. I can offer a suggestion. I can try to say, here's a place to stand. I don't think it's realistic to expect in any way that me or anyone else can manage to get up in front of that entire mass of personalities and get them to all agree, go do this.
Yep. I mean, I think the issue with that would be the same that I was talking about when I was talking about a new thing. I mean, that would be a new thing if you tried to do that with all of the drawbacks and opportunities involved there. So, all right, 2 seconds. Let me. Go ahead, Ben.
The one possibility that hasn't been discussed on here yet, that I've heard some people mention on Google Plus, is doubling down on the blogs. So returning back to the blogosphere. So creating, I know some people are putting together lists of all of the major OSR blogs. A lot of people are getting Feedly and other blog readers and just creating a well-curated, very robust list of all the OSR blogs, and then encouraging people to start writing that long-form, in-depth content again, and then just commenting on each other's blogs. It would have the advantage of being very distributed. So there's no like one moderator, because moderators can cause schisms, and people could, like Google Plus, simply create their own communities by just choosing which blogs to follow and to comment on.
So it basically follows the same characteristics of that. Basically, a blogosphere has the same fundamental characteristics of G+.
Right.
It just doesn't have a single brand name on top.
Yeah, and the main problem is that it's not all on like one page, right? In Google Plus, I just open up Google Plus and there's just a stream of everything right there. You could simulate that to a certain extent by, I guess there's some blog readers that maybe do that. I use Feedly. It sort of does that.
Yeah, the thing used to be Reader, another Google thing that was abruptly killed, which made the blogosphere much easier to interface with. And unfortunately, a tool that universal doesn't exist right now.
Feedly is almost identical to Reader. I think there's another one called the Old Reader that duplicates what Google Reader did. So there's some options out there.
That would be a very, very interesting thing to follow up. You know, the idea of what about, because using the blogosphere and saying we are recreating the OSR blogosphere, that would be somewhat different than somebody trying to set up a site or a new thing. It would still be a new thing, but it's less of a new thing. Listen to me, it's really starting to sound old. But that is a very, very interesting idea. Incidentally, Luca Rejak, or Rejak, I don't know how to pronounce his name. He is, I think he's the person at the center of the OSR blog list that Ben talked about. And assuming that I did the link right, it should be down in the description. The link is wrong to ET's location on Google. So I'm going to get ET to say again the name. The reason I'm not trying to go into the description and make that change while we're broadcasting is that I don't know if that would have the same effect as putting a bag of holding in a portable hole or vice versa. But ET, so tell us the name of your place so that people can find it on Google.
The community is named G+ RPG Escape Rocket. And encouragingly, a lot of people have been sharing it. So there's a good chance that somebody you already follow, if you're on G+, has mentioned it.
Okay, awesome. Jay, you've joined the conversation. Let's hear your thoughts in general on what's going on.
Well, first, my thoughts on what was going on. My name is Jay Murphy. Thanks for Matt Finch for inviting me on this discussion. My interest is because I use Google Plus exclusively for gaming, and without it, I wouldn't be back into gaming. It gives me an avenue. And
that's for the actual gaming itself.
Yeah, for the actual gaming itself. And the move came, just people were saying it was going to go away, and I knew I needed to replace it. So I've just been following the herd where they go to set up camp again, because I don't know which one's the best, but I know I'm going to want to have a platform to continue gaming. So that's why I've been following it, my interest. And the question I think you posed in my email, which may have gone to everyone else, was on what features would I be looking at for? Because I'm not sure what I need as far as a platform. But you posed a question of what I use Google Plus for, and I imagine in relation to gaming. And it was the ability to give a face-to-face game online that experience with the most ease.
Because there's the combination of the ability to use both graphics and a longer form written text there. Or were you using Hangouts?
Video chat, and as well as being able to form, it was really, and there was an aggregate of gamers there looking to actually play online. Who've already tried it, knew that it was viable, and it was a great way to play traditional role-playing games.
And so you were assembling players at the same time for it, and so that's,
yeah, it was a place to connect and play games. And then with the way it was all hooked up, seemed to work really well with the blog spot. I could start up a blog for free quickly, and now I got to see at the table, and I can start participating. I can start finding a game to get into. And then the communities and events and how that all was synced right into, a live game on Hangouts was like a quick, I could easily click a button once, and I would have my gaming people there. And the way the rest of the whole circle of 760 people that were in my circle, all they had to do was say, yay or nay, I'm interested in this community where this game was going to be run. And no one would ever be bothered with the 3 or 4 nerds that got together with me, and we, just built this castle online, of a game. So,
and then I think so. You actually, I'm glad you're in here, because you pointed out when I began the show, I made the my own blinders comment that the 2 main things that Google was used for was either people who are either posting a piece of creative information online for people to see, or that it was people who were using it as a link to something like a blog where they were putting down, longer form, probably the things that are too thought out just simply pop up somewhere and then have it disappear.
I found those as like extra features where the meat for me was actually being able to create a viable online community, or I guess the end goal was, or what's been achieved is in a tabletop role-playing game community where I don't have access to one face-to-face.
Right. So that's actually, and there have been a couple of people in the chat who have been talking about, it was when we raised the issue of Twitch, and some people were saying, yes, video capability is something that Google wasn't good at, and then other people were saying, yeah, but it's never been important to me, and therefore it's not so much an issue in terms of where I go from Google. And so we've now got a representative of the group of people on the chat who are saying that as a Google user, I use it for actual gaming and for connecting with people quickly to join in with a game.
Yes, because the blogs I was reading says, if you want to, this is where you can find us. The people, because, I started seeing that there were blogs on OSR games or gaming in general, because I had been out of it for 12 years, long time. And I was like, are people still gaming? And then I was like, is Gary Gygax still alive? And then I Googled it and came to a paragraph, and he had died. This was in 2012. So, and then there was blogs everywhere, and it just was instantly able to connect to a live gaming community where people were playing basic Dungeons and Dragons.
And you've also just posed one area in which I think that idea of recreating the blogosphere would not work for the kind of purpose that you are talking about, unless someone sees a way in which that would meet that need.
Yeah, because I didn't get games started from my blog. I just read blogs and got direction where people were, and then made my own blog just for the hell of it. I really don't need it to play, but I wanted to do more than just play. After a while, I wanted to make stuff. So the whole combination package allowed me to live a hobby of being a game designer and working at a game company without, like, you know, I got a day job. I do something else. This is a hobby.
Right.
But I can do it all. I can produce stuff on RPG Now and sell it. And I can game with people online, and I can talk about games all day long. So it was the touchstone for all those activities, live activities.
I've got a feeling that this is going to strengthen RPG Now quite a bit, actually, because I think a lot of people sort of used Google with storefronts, and this is going to disrupt that. That sort of
because Google Plus always, as far as gaming, I think we're all here want more than a storefront.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. We were there for more than a storefront. We were there to share D12 tables.
Yeah, exactly. Jason's Schultz's D12. I have yet to get that son of a gun onto the video. He's dodging me.
Mm-hmm. Well, some people will.
Yeah. All right. Next comment. E.T., were you?
Just a stray thought. Mentioning RPG Now just made me realize, what if One Bookshelf, the people behind RPG Now, want to get into this? This could be an opportunity for them. They could put their expertise, their capital behind forming a social network for these people who are leaving G+. And that's as developed as that thought is right now.
That's a really interesting thought, and I know that Steve at One Bookshelf is very aggressive about finding new ways to serve the gamer community. It strikes me that it would, once again, that it may be a little bit too late to have the new outside of the box solution, because, and we had a lot of people agree on the chat room, that it sort of needs to be something that people could jump into pre-prepared, and people are looking at there's time-sensitive exit strategy for people to decide what it is that they're going to do.
They have great exposure, and everybody who makes use of RPG Now on Drive-Thru RPG, that is somebody they can make a pitch to. A big problem, a big challenge for these other networks is that most people aren't aware of them. Most people are not aware of Diaspora or Mastodon or a dozen of the others. So it's difficult to get critical mass on them. But by its very nature, most people who are into RPGs beyond just the most casual level are aware of RPG Now and the other One Bookshelf services. So it's an in.
Yeah. No, that is...
I'm sorry, I'm triggered now.
One of the things. All right, you're triggered. So you go ahead. We also triggered a couple people in the chat room too about.
Oh, I'm not triggered in any constructive way. It's just 20 years of tech startups. I want to go, grab all of us, get in a plane, and go raise a few million on this idea.
Listen,
and do it ourselves.
Talking, Jim, since you're triggered and you're going to talk, I'm going to duck away from the screen for the biology break from my coffee while you guys maintain stuff going on without a moderator, and if everyone's killing each other when I come back, I'm going to be very upset.
So there's an ability to see live chat.
Yeah, if you just go to Uncle Matt's YouTube channel and be sure and mute the window first, you can see the viewer chat.
Oh, thank you. That'd be great. Who doesn't love instant feedback?
Well, Jay mentioned a good thing about the gaming. That's not how I've used G+, but I've been part of groups that we would make a community around a particular campaign and put all the notes and stuff relevant to the campaign in that community. So while we weren't actually running the game on G+, we started off using Hangouts, and when Hangouts got wonky, we went to Discord and are using Roll20 for the other side of it. But all the information is on G+.
Mm-hmm. And you can keep your toe in G+ with other gamers, and you haven't mixed messages and cluttered stuff up. You can see it. Other people are separated from seeing stuff they're not interested in.
Exactly.
So ET, let's go raise some money on that.
You first. You know, as in most challenges like this, it's so much easier to get someone else to pay for it. Well, so much less daunting.
I think that's the single most interesting thing with MeWe to me, just coming into it as a first blush. I only registered for an account today, so a week ago I had no idea they existed, and was studying the financial model where they're making their money with the the add-ons is how they're going to fund this, and I wonder what their life is going to be after this Google announcement, because that's a tight margin to scale up your server farm on. Like I tried the first time I tried to join WeMe today, their servers were down because they're dealing with all this Google News flux.
I am very much concerned about MeWe because that profit model doesn't sound reliable, and I'm disappointed that so much of the community has just decided to jump to another for-profit service, because it just means at some point this is probably all going to happen again. The percentages on any online business surviving aren't good. And additionally, you're at the whim of whatever makes the profit for that company. So that's why I say I wish they had chosen something else besides me. I understand why they did, and retroactively, I hope it succeeds, but I'm pessimistic.
Well, the one thing that's for sure is we get to find out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But, you know, these things come and go. I mean, we were all on MySpace, what, 15 years ago?
True, true.
And the old forums, which I wish somebody would just take the forums out behind the barn and shoot them, but they're still there.
I'm looking at some of the other blog aggregators, like the Old Reader, which I don't use, but I've heard about. And apparently it has like social aspects to it. So you can create friend lists and like share blog posts to them and comment on them. That's kind of cool.
Is this the feeder app you were talking about?
Yeah, the blog reader app was one called the Old Reader. It's basically a clone of the Google version. It's very similar anyway. I'm just really interested in any sort of solution that's much more distributed, because I have the same doubts about MeWe. Seeing like a kind of a tenuous business model. It's really small, like no one has ever heard of it. And those types of social media companies tend not to last for very long. They just can't keep it up.
The death of Google killed it.
Yeah, I mean, Google couldn't keep a social media platform going. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the concern, right?
I'm shocked that everybody's shocked now, because when they took their dev team off of Google Plus like a year or two ago, the writing was on the wall then that this was how it was going to go.
You tried to ignore it when it became too useful.
Change is hard.
Yeah, but you know, if we got tools to go to, that's great. I'd like to hear some of people's favorites.
I know people have talked about some of the more distributed ones, like, what is it, Diaspora, or Diaspora?
Yeah, Diaspora, and somebody made a clone of it called Pluspora, and then there's Mastodon, and I guess some of those have some limits on their post size or something. Somebody was saying.
Yeah, Mastodon has a character limit like Twitter. It's longer than Twitter, but it's still a character limit. So I think that's going to be a no-go, just because it's going to cut down on the kind of discussions people are going to have. I mean, the advantages is that they're all not run by one company that can be shut down. Anyone can clone it, but it's still, you know, fairly siloed to a certain extent, as I understand it.
Now we've got here's another question. Douglas Cole saying he was asked today by Rob Conley how easy it would be to use the GURPS day script to pull in RSS feeds from blogs. Does anyone know what that means? Jim,
I don't know what GURPS day
Ben.
is. I don't know what GURPS day is. I mean, I know what GURPS is.
I don't have a clue, but you can write a script that'll do anything if you've got enough time and money.
Yeah, well, that's always the problem, though. Time and money are commodities that most of us are short on.
I mean, the only reason I'm able to do what I'm doing in gaming is because of the already existing online tools that allow me to leverage my time to do that.
Well, yeah, and that's exactly. But all right, so we may get more comments on that in the blog, given that I asked the question. Oh, here we go. Okay. GURPS Day is a weekly aggregation of blog posts. So it's actually, I guess, not related to the game GURPS, which, of course, that's the first thing I saw when it was GURPS.
It is related to it. I just Googled it.
Okay.
It's
yeah, it would have to be.
It's a weekly summary and compilation of GURPS related blogs.
Damn you, Steve Jackson.
One day he's going to get to be the robot overlord. I mean, the guy with the Illuminati game just has to become
right.
Overlord. This is what we may be seeing is the first actual step by Steve Jackson to control the world via the Illuminati.
It could have been worse. It could have been called the Ogre Aggregator.
Yeah,
the Aggregator.
The Aggregator. One single tank.
Jeremy Smith is asking, Matt, please gently push MeWe, and this will be tomorrow in my discussion, on integration of gaming features. Can I get you to type for me what you mean about integration of gaming features so that I've got a more specific thing to look at?
Dice roller's the big one everybody's asking for.
And so that would be important to Jay. And again, it's one of the things that was in my blind side because I would never even thought of Google as an actual gaming platform. So that's why the dice roller is coming out.
Yeah. But more the ability to go to video chat and grab a bunch of people and they can all enter. Just basically a video conference.
So following again on the chat, we've also got Doug Cole saying it wasn't done by Steve Jackson Games. So what the issue there is using the same software that they use to aggregate the blog posts into a weekly thing. Oh, Doug, you did it? All right.
Yeah,
So
Doug said he wrote it.
God damn it, Doug. Hang on. We're going to invite Doug into the chat.
Well,
Damn
yeah.
you, Douglas.
Exactly, right?
All right. Here we go. I'm not looking
We'll take anybody on this chat.
Elevate the level of discussion here, huh? Bring in a coder.
Doug will, plus Doug's got like weapons in his room, so that's always good.
Nice.
There's Doug. And
I love that. It's just a Perl script.
And we're going to be
Knowing how to do the Perl script to do that's the key.
Launch screen. All right, I got to find the. Hey, this is an interesting thing. I am about to go into here, and I'm going to click on the invite user thing, and I'm wondering whether it's going to show for everybody on the thing. So if y'all were quick enough to grab that when I pulled it out, everybody can join the thing. Doug, I'm working on getting you the link. Hang on a second.
We can do a live sociology experiment here and just invite everyone to this group.
So this will be the replacement for MeWe, right?
Yeah.
Just have a perpetual live stream that anyone can talk to each other on.
God, that is not a. It's kind of
cool.
Fascinating idea, actually, except that there's no way you could have a lot of people on it. But
all the voices talking at the same time. What?
Well, you can do that on Discord. Discord has has a voice chat room. You can just click on it and you can just talk to whoever else is in there. Video Discord, yeah, basically. Public access TV OSR.
Because I was surprised to see.
You and I are. That's what you and I are, Ben, in a lot of ways.
Basically, I guess. I've thought of doing that in the past, of having like a day for Questing Beast where I would just have like an open invitation to just like people on Google Plus. So all sorts of different OSR creators could just get on and we could just like chat with each other live. It never really panned out, but I thought about it.
It would be.
I was surprised that we didn't have video chat. When people were suggesting it, I just assumed that it would have that capability. I mean, you can do a video phone call, but can you phone conference from there?
From Google Plus, yeah.
No, on the new one, MeWe.com.
Oh, I don't think they have any video features.
Yeah,
Not
I
yet.
was surprised to find that. I just assumed they would be if it was being suggested.
Yeah, Discord is generally Discord and Twitch are the two front runners there, depending on whether people are talking about voice on Discord and Twitch seem to be the two things that people are talking about, other than like Roll20 table.
Well, I know a lot of people quit using Hangouts because it got too difficult and just went to Discord for the audio, working with Roll20. So some of us that use Game Online aren't looking for an all-in-one solution, whereas some people that game online, they want the all-in-one solution.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I just Googled this. Apparently on Discord, you can do video chat as well as audio chat.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
they
they
got
did
both.
fairly
that.
recently added, but apparently it's very good.
Hey, y'all.
So here we've got Doug Cole.
Thanks for coming on board our discussion panel.
I have a long history of being spontaneously invited to chat with Matt. So.
I like to ambush Doug because he's always at his best when he's taken by surprise. For example, you will get him and you can only see his forehead because his camera is turned up much more toward the ceiling, for example.
That's the way he likes it.
I'm working on it. There we go. Oh,
Let's talk about that stream the aggregation that you were talking about with, I guess it's a Perl script, Larry said, that you did for Steve Jackson.
yeah, and it's actually let me see if I can do this. Sorry, let me there we go. Come on, let's get my face in the darn view. Oh, I know what the problem is. I bumped the screen earlier. There we go. Yeah, so it's actually not done for Steve Jackson. It was one of these things where the GURPS blogosphere was kind of all over the place, right? It was people writing about their games and whatever, and it was fine. And then at some point in 2012, I started saying Thursday is GURPS Day, and I would do something on GURPS. And then I tried to pull in some different blogs, and I do some links, and then Jeffro Johnson is like, you could automate this. I'm like, I can't automate crap. And so he wrote a script for me. And then a GURPS person goes by the name of Cinderella or Bruno, or I don't think she likes to go by her real name online. But anyway, she's a maestro, and so she helped me put all the libraries on my computer. But once a week, I run this script, and I have an Excel sheet that has a list of blogs and a list of RSS feeds, and the attribution and the name. I know I already got that. It's the blog name, the person's name, the RSS feed, and the something else. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. But in any case, it basically takes these 4 pieces of information, goes out to the web, pulls a week's worth of blog updates, and you can embed a little text if you want that to show up. And then it's just a text output, and I paste that into my blog each week. And I started doing this, and then a couple years later, apparently Phil Reed is like, what the hell is GURPS Day, and why don't we know about it? And then it got on the Daily Illuminator and went from like 10 blogs to 100. So we're pulling from 104 blogs. Now, not everybody writes every week, but we usually get 30 or 40 articles. Sometimes you'll get like 10 articles from one guy. That would be the equivalent of 10 car. Then, some people are like, oh, we played for the first time in a month, so here's the write-up, and you won't hear from that person again for a couple of weeks. But it averages to between 30 and 50 blogs each week, and that's GURPS, which is not the creative hotbed that the OSR is because of licensing restrictions. So I suspect actually the problem that you'd run into with an OSR blog roll summary aggregator like that is being overwhelmed because it's such an active community.
Mm-hmm.
But what a problem to have, right?
Yeah.
Would that be workable on a daily basis?
It would. It doesn't take that long to run. It would. It would be. Actually, what we could wind up doing is start a WordPress or an OSR or a Blogger blog, and then each day you run the script. If I knew more, I'm sure that it could be automated. You just say, every morning at 6 a.m. Central Time or whatever. You run the script, and it fires off a text file. Actually, I would be sure that somebody better than me would be able to automate that to the point where it would simply just run and post. Actually, that sounds like Feedly, doesn't it?
It does sound like Feedly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that I'm reinventing a wheel, but anyway, so that's all that GURPS Day is. It's a way of getting and we used to have the other thing that we used to do is every month we had something where everybody would try and address something similar. Like we'd say, oh, we're all gonna talk about tactics to use against a superior enemy, or we're all going to talk about coolest defenses or whatever. And it was totally opt-in. If you wanted to write about it, great. If you didn't, you write about something else. But there were some really neat back and forths about rules issues or cool builds or everybody, what's your favorite fighter character? Who knows? That was the other thing that really got it started was a couple of the grognards and sort of myself included, but a couple of people who really knew the system. We had something every now and then called Melee Academy, where GURPS is a second-by-second, turn-by-turn game, and so we would do Melee Academy. What are we going to do today? Oh, we're going to do or we had grappling day, or we'd have, of course, because grappling, or how to use a shield, because that's a perennial topic with me. But what's the difference between judo, karate, and boxing? There's 3 skills in GURPS. What are they used for? And people will be like, oh, I use it for this, I use it for this. Anyway, blah blah blah.
Okay, let me jump in. Yeah. Let me jump in since ET has come back on the line. We've hit roughly the hour and a half mark. So let me go through and reintroduce all of y'all, because we may have a new group of people watching by now to whom you haven't been introduced. So just people who know, and I'm going to go in the opposite direction that I did last time. We have Larry of Follow Me and Die.
Hello.
We've got Jim Wampler, who is sort of social media expert, sociologist, and talking about the general things. We have Jay here, who is talking largely about the I'm a gamer and I use G+ for gaming right now approach to things. E.T. Smith here is sort of in charge of the location on G+ where many gamers, including the OSR gamers, are coming to get information about where other people are going, what the discussions are. So that's sort of the location on Google+ for talking about the same topics that we're talking about in this show. We have Douglas Cole, who I ambush periodically and invite him onto the show with no warning. And he's been talking specifically about a script because Ben Milton had raised an issue about how the blogosphere works, the fact that actually at one point in time in a more decentralized fashion, we had something that did do what G+ does. And then last and obviously not least is Ben Milton of Questing Beast, and he's basically keeping everybody honest. So so that's the group of people that we've got on here. We are running pretty significantly behind the ideas that are coming up in the chat room. So if you're putting stuff up in the chat room, we are not ignoring you. It's just that there's so much stuff coming up on the chat room that we're not really able to keep up with it all as it comes up. So Larry, you have been silent for quite a long time. Let me get you to sort of laundry basket. What are your thoughts on the various things that we've been talking about? You must have comments and stuff written down.
Yeah, I keep chiming in here and there. Basically, we need a way that the community that has developed in the days of G+ can stay in touch. And that's one of the benefits of what MeWe offers, but one of the, I guess, offsets to that is new people aren't going to be able to find it right now because of the way it works. And so the challenge is MeWe what it's going to be because it's the best? Will it last because of funding models and so forth? And it's a combination of creators wanting to put their stuff out there so that consumers can find it, and consumers want to be able to find it. And then like Jay, there's the people that use it for gaming. And I don't know that we're going to find one platform that does the content sharing and consumer finding and game facilitation in one product. That is going to be a challenge. It sounds like MeWe is going to try, but I don't know. There's so much up in the air trying to find the best solution. I don't know that one platform can do it like Google did. I mean, maybe, but will that platform be viable in the long term?
I think if Facebook had the ability to have multiple people in videos, I mean, again, it's been raised. Facebook does virtually everything. It's just that Facebook's got its own problems, that are unrelated to the ones from Google.
I think the big issue with Facebook, besides being unwieldy, is that a lot of people do use Facebook for their personal lives. That's what I do. I use Facebook to communicate with my parents and siblings and stuff like that. And I want to keep that separate from my RPG life. I'm not interested in people following me on Facebook getting to see my whole personal life at the same time. So I would have to create a separate Facebook account that I just used for RPGs. And then people could, I guess, follow me, and you can make it work like G+. But I don't know if a lot of people want to do that.
Yeah, it's not. I'm starting to do that a bit on Facebook as well. I'm jumping on the MeWe as well, just because there are people who are like, I'm not going to touch Facebook. I like G+. Find me something that's not Facebook. G+. But I have my personal Facebook page, and then Facebook account, and then I have a Facebook page for Gaming Ballistic, and a Gaming Ballistic group for discussion, and I just started the group a couple of days ago, so we'll see how it goes. If I had my way, all the friendly people who found out about me through gaming and have friended me on my personal page where I post my pictures of my children would simply go over and like my page and unlike or unfriend or unfollow my personal, just for that exact reason that that Ben just mentioned, is to keep this is how I send pictures of my kids to my family, and this is my business in gaming and marketing, which I would like to keep separate.
Yeah.
Mostly because I don't think that Random Gamer cares about, what Melody ate for lunch.
No. No, right?
Although I do kind of like the fact that I find this kind of thing out from people every once in a while. But yeah, you're right. I'm not going to follow you specifically to check on Melody's lunch every week. But every once in a while, somebody like, Melody ate cheese crackers for lunch. I'm like, awesome, you go, man.
Yeah, it's to the point where it's a little weird when someone that I've never heard of, but is one of my Quest Me subscribers, tries to friend me on Facebook. I'm like, no, and I cancel it immediately. No, you don't get to see what I do with my normal life. Yeah.
Something to keep in mind is that an important division was that on Facebook, you were just automatically exposed to everything. Everything you did, everybody would see. So you couldn't have that sort of division between your gaming life, your professional life, your family life. And it was really useful on G+ that you could do all those things there, but you could separate them. A lot of the people I followed for their gaming insights, I was also happy to see certain aspects of their regular lives. But the shrewd ones would divide those into different feeds that I could selectively turn on and off. So the people that I really care about the politics of Wisconsin, I could shut those off and let them talk about their mountain biking experience. And that was really nice to have, because I actually do want to be involved with the people that are in the gaming community as people. I don't want to just deal with them solely as a source of random tables.
Yeah, or transactional, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you get both. You got both. So you got a lot of function.
And I think that
out of a seemingly simple setup.
I think one of the things is that, and this is an aside, but I think one of the things that makes certain bloggers popular is that they do give the little snippets, Tenkar be like, Rachel's calling me from the other room, so I'm all done. And it does, that establishing a personal connection is something that is important across the hobby. It's just whether you're forcing people to find out what other people's kids ate for lunch, or whether you're just reading, in that particular post. But Ben, I mean, one of the things I've noticed about YouTube is that YouTube makes an incredibly strong connection between the viewers and the person. And I assume it's because they're seeing your face, you know, when you're talking. I mean, have you noticed the same thing?
Oh yeah, I mean, like all of the big YouTube channels have like whole cults of personality around them, basically. Like, you know, Dawn of Forge Cast or Taking 20 or WebDM. They're like celebrities, basically, because they're just there talking at the camera. So it is a cult of personality thing. I don't do that very much. You basically just see my hands. So there's less of that for me.
Oh, that's you. I want a cult of personality. You know, and an army. And, you know, I want legions. Everyone wants legions, don't they?
Things get weird quickly. I remember Matt Colville talking about that in particular, where like his channel was fairly small originally, but then it just exploded, of course. Now it's like hundreds of thousands of subs. And at a certain point, he made a post where he's like, I have to disengage. He's like, I can't deal with all of you people anymore. Where like, because at a certain point, the cult of personality turns you into like an object, and they start making memes about you, and you're like now a commodity that's being consumed. And that's hard to deal with.
Yeah. We had a question that I wanted, and it's another one of going back for something that we mentioned earlier on, and bringing it back up because it's one of the major ones, and I don't find the thing. It may have been Evan that asked this question, Evan Edwards. But one of the things about MeWe, and we will be talking more about MeWe tomorrow when I talk with Jason Hardy, their product director. But one of the things about MeWe is the question of what's it going to look like in a year, because it's A, relatively young, and B, it's got this sort of floating reputation of, you know, is it right wing, is it left wing, is it going to be, and the way that I you know, sort of phrase this is that it doesn't matter what they are. What's important is how they're viewed, because if we all gamers pile on there and then it becomes viewed as being an alt-right site or something like that, then everyone who's on there is painted with the same brush, kind of like if you were a Reddit user during Gamergate. Even if you were only on Reddit to talk about Civilization 4, you suddenly ended up being tarred with a political brush because of the Gamergate thing on Reddit. And we have talked about that, and we don't have no one, I think, came up with an answer to that other than that is a potential. It is a potential drawback of MeWe that we don't know what it's going to become. And we've also had, you know, like Jim Wampler raised the issue. We don't know really where their funding is coming from. So what are they going to have to add in order to get the revenue? And it's at a point right now where we don't actually know that yet. Somebody else has also put up on there that you know, they will have public posting in December. So apparently they've come down to a more specified date on that. Thank you, Jeremy Smith. That's Jeremy Smith. And then VA is in favor of me having minions, and so yeah, I'm good with that. Right now,
it's not as much fun as it sounds.
Well, I've got Zach Glazer.
Well, and me.
Yeah, you're not really one of them. You're really disobedient minion is what you are.
It's never good when your minions try and manage up, is it?
Yeah. Now, Matt Jackson has raised something that I think is really important too, and it is going to interact with this. It's been raised a couple of times in the distinction between people playing on G+, people putting up their monsters for people to see on G+, and people using G+ as a link to an outside place like a blog. And that is that we've always, or almost always in the OSR, had this uncomfortable friction between the OSR as purely a hobby and the OSR where people are using it to make money, whether it's to a large degree or to a small degree. And that's always, you know, there's always been that tension there, and people saying, you know, oh, it's getting, you know, too commercialized, or I wish there were more products, or whatever it might be. That's been in there, and that is going to be something that continues forward into wherever it goes. And so I'm not sure that I have any comments about that, because it's just the way things are. So I'm not sure that it's relevant to where we move to, except for the fact that it is gonna perforce have to have some commercial application, because there are a lot of people who do this stuff for pennies, you know, who are still basically hobby publishers. So
and some of us wish we would do it for more than pennies and haven't quite crested that yet.
Yep.
It's true. Yeah.
But it also, like I highlighted, not only am I playing, I get to design and publish game material, even if it just becomes with using RPG now, kind of like a clubhouse where people who are interested in playing my games can go and buy the pamphlets they need, the books they need to play the game. And you don't have to arrange or get stuff for people. You know, no one needs to go get a rule book to play my game. They can go to RPG Now and download, the PDF for it really cheaply, kind of like club dues, paying for the virtual space. But also get to do the experience of what it would be like to be a game business person without having to do it and risk anything.
I think that's been a great thing ever since the point at God, I guess it was when Lulu started up with people being able to do print on demand and distribute, and it was a place to distribute PDFs. And that was that everybody could be a publisher to whatever degree they wanted to, and they could price things however they wanted to. I mean, one of the early people using it was Chris Gonerman, and Chris's approach was basically, I'm putting this up at my cost. I'm not marking it up at all, and that was his way of seeing seeing what was the right approach to take in terms of that friction point. And then I think when I started out, I think I decided for some reason that 10% was the right number. And in real markets, and where we started getting to is that the people are shooting for at least a 200% markup, simply because of other costs that are involved. But that's been all over the place in terms of where people price things. I mean, Doug, you were talking about at one point when you were talking about Dragon Heresy and the pricing on it, and it was the square root, basically.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was and there are two parts. Yeah, the square to the page count to the square to the word count. I did some math. Whatever. The hard part there is, at least for me, was realizing that some of my older books as print on demand, even if they got big, I could never serve the market in distribution or have them sit on shelves because it was like $8 to print a $15 book, which is great if I'm doing onesie twosies or going through drive-through or whatever. But my local role-playing game store is never going to be able to carry Dragon Heresy. I said not Dragon Heresy. Dungeon Grappling. Because it's a $15 price point and it costs $8 or $7 or something to print it. So it's you can't go into distribution at that level. Dragon Heresy makes it into a distributable piece because I overprinted. We'll see how well that goes.
All right, so let me also run through what I'm thinking of in my head as Larry's list, even though we've got Ben added a couple of things to it. And this was at the very beginning of the show. Larry listed out a group of things that are the desirable characteristics of Google Plus, and this ET, you can jump in on this as well. The list that he made was that was, first of all, search capability, and although it had degraded a little bit, that would be an important thing going forward, would be hopefully to have something as good as what G Plus started with. It's that the communities allow you to narrow down your focus, so that, again, that looks like something that MeWe is probably on top of. And they're good at narrowing down. It's broadening it where they seem to be the issue. The ability to follow someone without them following you, which Ben described as asymmetrical, creating your own group. That's one of the things in there, rather than having to have two people approve the thing. And so right now, again, MeWe doesn't have that capability. Division into circles, which was controlled by the person doing the posting, and the ability to have collections, which was something controlled by the viewer, was one of the real benefits of G+. Ben brought up the ability to do long-form text, which for most of the alternatives is not an issue, but for some of them like Twitter and Mastodon, I guess the limitation on how much you can write would be a serious issue. The ability to have threading in G+, also just the issue of sub-discussions breaking out on there, and then the integration of Hangouts and events, which again, Jay highlighted for us when your approach is being able to put together a one-off game from a community that's sitting there and listening to you when you propose, hey, let's do a game, and then being able to actually run it all on the same platform. Which right now you could do sort of on a Discord channel, but it wouldn't work the same way as it does on G+. So that was just to bring people sort of up to speed, since we've got a long broadcast here, which I wanted to do so that people could get in and do the chat rooms. That's sort of where we started from at the very beginning of the talk. And then, so let me get ET. Do you have anything, since you weren't on right at the point in time that we were making that list, do you have other things about G+ that you would want to see replicated or improved in a new platform that you would suggest people look for?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind, well, you mentioned that it can be shared with people outside the platform. It has to be functional on mobile. More and more people, their online experience comes from their phones. So it's got to be able to something they can access with an app. And unfortunately, that excludes a lot of otherwise very good choices. I actually made a list. Other things, open source friendly. One of the problems with Facebook is that it's very commercial driven. It wants to focus on products. And at the same time, it's really harsh on copyright. We don't want to have a place that is always going to hammer down if it sees somebody, say, quoting a rule that might be considered proprietary. And just as a general sort of philosophical approach, I do want to focus on RPGs experiences rather than objects, as acts of creation rather than acts of consumption. One of the things that was mentioned is that a few years ago, the website Board Game Geek made a partner website called RPG Geek, and they were trying to do the same thing, be a central place for enthusiasts of RPGs to come in and discuss it. Unfortunately, they took the exact same approach they did to their board game system, which is centered around just lists of games, of their publication, of what's in them, of what the art is like. And they took the same approach to RPGs, and that kind of meant the community never went anywhere. Because once you establish that, say, the 4th edition of Gamma World exists, and that's as far as your database goes to support it, there's not really much discussion there. So I want to be in a place that's more focused on what did you do? What did you and your companions create, and then tell us about that. So that's my rough thoughts on things right now.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. It's focusing on kind of the same issue of the people who directly use Google Plus to say, here's the monster, here's a thing I did, that's sort of like putting it up on the fridge with a magnet,
Right.
that is not well duplicated anywhere that is commercially oriented, because a lot of them try and shift those people to the side, really, that are putting up something like that, whereas that is at the heart of the DIY OSR that's out there, is people just putting it up in little pieces, because it takes time to do something like that. Someone's not devoted to doing it full time, is only going to have one piece like that every once in a while. And again, this really I don't know if this is me getting pulled in by this idea, but the idea of Feedly and blogs and blogospheres seems to keep circling back in kind of an interesting way. I think Ben's away from the camera. So
one of the things that the blogs, or forget blogs in particular, but what you wind up having is like a central room, like a common room, and then hotel rooms where each hotel room is my blog or your blog or whatever. And if there's a good way to say, oh, I'm going to write a blog post, and anyone who wants to can come see it, or I'm going to share to all these people who I know are interested because they've said that they're interested, without having to say, oh, I'm going to share to Google Plus role playing and role playing games and Gaming Ballistic and OSR, and because then the same post shows up like 42 times.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really irritating to the people who are actually following those multiple groups. And I get that, but it's also, there are parts of those groups that don't overlap. So it would be really nice if, whether it's a blog to blog sort of weird parallel processing thing, or a way to integrate
that's called a web ring, Doug. It may be from before your time.
Yeah. Okay. But I think I remember, I wasn't deep into the IT stuff when that was coming up. I remember the phrase. Anyway, point is that if MeWe or a blogosphere or a web ring or whatever can handle the same way that I can follow particular threads, if I can say, okay, I have a post and I think it's going to be interesting to these communities, but it only shows up once in your feed, that'll get rid of some of the chaff, but still allow you to reach target communities without being like, oh, I've seen your Kickstarter announcement 42 frickin' times today.
Yes, I know. That's
because then, people who would otherwise look at your stuff were like, okay, enough. I get it. It's heretical. It's got dragons. Shut the frack up.
Mm-hmm.
Where otherwise they might be like enthusiastic adopters.
Okay, I think I had two people talking there. Larry, what were you saying?
Well, you get desensitized to it after a while, and it's difficult because as a blogger, I know that not everybody follows all the same places, but I try to limit it. I'll put it on my personal G Plus and 2 other places. I don't go to too many other places because then it really is beating a dead horse.
Yeah, I do the same thing when there's something. Yeah, Matt, the thing about threading that I talked about, it's not something that G Plus does more than one level. It's the same as MeWe. That was me misspeaking about one of the things that was a desire to improve on the threading. So I made a mistake there. Ben, I keep coming back to Feedly and blogs. It's one of the
What do you like about Feedly? What are the features there that are?
I mean, Feedly is not special. Neither is like the old Reader. They're just blog aggregators. It works the same way as the old Google Reader. That's all it is. You just put in all the blogs you like, and it just tells you when they post something new. It's all like in one minimalistic little list.
Gotcha.
So which wouldn't, I mean, and that wouldn't solve Jay's issue with the gaming environment. And it also, I mean, one of the benefits of Google is that really, if you're a Google user, it's identical to Facebook, that you basically have the ability to do a blog post without having to screw with having a blog. I mean, it puts up a thing and it says, what do you want to type? And you type it in, and then everything else is done. So it's sort of like a super easy blog, which, most people, don't want to maintain a blog. I mean, for those of us who do a lot of writing about this stuff, a blog makes sense. But Google sort of pulled in, hundreds and thousands of people for whom just a little quick thing was easier. And if you could figure out a way to get an RSS feed for all of those people out there who would just every once in a while like to, put some monster stats in a box, then you've got something.
Like, but maintaining a blog is not difficult, right?
No, it's not. But most people
create one in 5 minutes, and you're, but like,
well, so you say that, but it's like podcasting. People read a good blog and get a lot of content from it and think I can do that, and they all jump in and doing something that they're year in, year out and continues to have great content is a lot of work. It's a lot of perspiration and sweat.
I mean, like the thing that
easy for you.
Patrick Stewart was talking about this, where he was talking about how with the collapse of G Plus in the near future, it's actually encouraging him to go back to his blog and do more writing. And I've been feeling a little bit like that too. Like I have a blog, I hardly write anything on it, very rarely. I don't do any of the like in-depth world building or mechanical stuff that a lot of people do. Mostly because I have G Plus. So whenever I have an idea, I just sort of fire off like this half-baked idea onto G Plus, and I get a lot of great comments from people and we have a discussion. But I don't have like a place where I dig into an idea and really flesh it out and start building something. And I've been getting more excited about the idea of doing that when Google Plus is gone. So I don't know.
I mean, Tenkar had thousands and thousands of blog followers when basically he shot off 3-line posts 10 times a day, right? A couple of years ago before it really sort of snowballed and he
Right.
got the G plus. So I mean, there's definitely a place for the, hey, here's a 5-sentence observation on gaming. And then there's like, you know, I've done some of that. Mostly my stuff tends to be longer. But you know, going back to the simple versus not simple, it really, I think, as you said, anyone can start a blog, and I know that one of my friends, Peter Delorto, who's a GURPS author and has run a very long-running GURPS Dungeon Fantasy OSR, depends what he's playing at the time, blog, and it's your basic blogger template. He doesn't do anything to it other than maybe add a blog roll and a couple things. So it's very minimalist because he doesn't like to do work, and he's very upfront about being a lazy blogger and a lazy GM. It's his favorite thing. If you're going to commercialize your stuff, you're going to want to have a front end, and you may want to go to. I like WordPress because it supports WooCommerce and it's you can own it and all that stuff. That's when you're starting to try and monetize your stuff. I think it gets a little more complicated. But if you're starting to monetize your stuff, you're asking for the complication, right? I think it's something where I'm going to run a little bit of a business, right? You know, there are ways to do that and dabble. But if you want, I want people to come to my thing and be able to buy my stuff and read my stuff and become part of a community that I'm going to start, and it's going to be yay Gaming Ballistic or yay Frog God or yay whatever, then you're asking for the complication, and you know you'll have to either dig into that or find someone who's interested in digging into it for you. I paid someone to set up my stuff because I'm not a CSS coder, right? A friend of mine who was like, I think GURPS Day is a great idea, wrote the script for me. You know, and some of that is, you know, like Matt, if you said, hey, I think it'd be a great idea if we generated this app, you've got enough of a following that someone would probably step up. Right. And then you become project manager guy and you've got content expert and oh my God, it's like running a business because that's exactly what you're doing. Right. The inspiring leader says, go that way. And people are like, oh, that's something I want to contribute to. And there's a different kind of community building, but that's how the infrastructure for something that replaces G plus with a role playing game centric direction is going to go. Someone's going to be like, you know, we could cobble this stuff together, or we can do something that works for all of these indie guys that aren't Paizo or Wizards of the Coast. You know, I couldn't write it, but I'd certainly be happy to be part of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing I did, you know, this is the thing with the voice of experience. I did actually, I didn't see the G plus fall coming, but you know, a couple years ago, I was like, hey, the OSR is way too far disseminated for people to be able to find out what's going on in the different branches of it. Why don't I create, you know, sort of a lobby place for it? But just the issue is that what's involved with that technologically turns out to be very, very difficult if what you want to do is show what people are doing at remote locations other than by using an RSS feed. And so, you know, basically what you would be trying to do would be to recreate Feedly sitting on a particular website so that people would know, you know, where to find it and everything. But I've already tried that once, and I know what the difficulties are. And I'm definitely not going to step up. I mean, yeah, I mean, I've certainly got a loud enough megaphone that I can get volunteers for stuff. But this is one that I've tried before, and I think there are enormous. It's more difficult than something that I would like to try here.
It was a Bene Gesserit thing. They tried and died.
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, it involved in what you're doing now, which is achieving the goals that you originally wanted in its own way.
Oh, well, I mean, it's led to great stuff. It's just that particular goal of creating a technologically functioning hub site for the OSR just turned out to have lots of difficulties involved with doing it, one of which, you know, just would be curation. It takes an enormous amount of time. We forget that, you know, even, you know, Facebook and Google, you know, we complain about their taking stuff out. Everybody's got a problem with the moderators and the admins of some site, or rather every group of mods and admins is going to have people who hate them because of the way that they do it. It's one of the biggest difficulties to creating any sort of you know, uniform threshold. Here's the go-to location.
Well, right. It's the paradox of a social network is it doesn't function correctly without some kind of administration and moderation. But as soon as you get that, there can be issues too.
That's why you end up with more than one community in G+ for the same game system.
Yes.
And what Ben was talking about, the blogs, as a blogger, that thought occurred to me as well. Get more involved with the blog, because it's too easy to just dash out something fast on G+. And if I had to put it into my blog, I wouldn't have to worry about what's going to happen to all my information I put into G+, because I'd already have it. And I've read other people saying the same thing. And the list that's going around of building up all the list of different blogs, I had the same thought. I'm going to review my blog roll and make it a more comprehensive blog roll, and take it from the sidebar and just make a page out of it. That way I'll always have that list.
Yeah, make a page out of it, of course.
Yeah.
I even thought of that. That's a great use of the blog, of your blog.
Exactly. That was the first thought I had, is how am I going to do this? I want to keep track of all these people.
Yeah, good one.
So I've been once again. This is the point where I jump in with a really trenchant question that everybody leaps to answer. Except I was reading the questions in the discussion going on in the chat room. So let me circle back around, and I'm gonna. Jay, what's your feeling on the discussion that we've gone so far? And for anybody who wasn't here when Jay came in, Jay uses Google Plus as an actual gaming location for pulling in people to play in the game and then actually playing the game in there. Jay, what are your thoughts
on the discussion so far overall?
Yeah.
Or the discussion, I didn't find much that I disagreed with, and the use of Google Plus and Hangouts. I guess my one comment is I'm not clear. Does Hangouts go away? Is the solution just what we're talking about, bundling
I think
announcement and aggregate site to put the video, and then you just cobble on your video service, and the people that want to play with you are going to have to use that?
Last thing I read was Hangout stays for now.
A few years ago, they clearly separated Hangouts from Plus, so there was to keep it around.
And why isn't it the relationship? It seems like there was a relationship between YouTube and Google Plus, just when right now, like, live streaming has become popular.
There was an attempt, as I recall, to make it so that comments on YouTube had to be done through Google Plus accounts. It was extremely unpopular.
Yeah, that was so much pushback, they didn't keep that for very long.
Isn't effectively Hangouts on Air basically a YouTube version, just called? My impression was that the Hangout function was supposed to migrate over to YouTube Live or something like that.
Yeah, and I never saw that materialize unless I totally missed it.
It's integrated into YouTube. That's what I use.
Yeah, it's invisible because the only way that you see it is if you're actually backstage in your YouTube thing. But what happens, like with this, the reason that we're sitting on a Google Hangout is because when I create an event, you can either use broadcasting software like XSplit or OBS, or what you can do is just say, yeah, do it through a Google Hangout, and that's dead easy. And so that's
exactly.
It's integrated that way, but you don't see it unless you're inside a YouTube channel, basically.
The commenters all say we are correct.
So that's good to know that we are correct. So my comments is I'm as a person who's using this to keep my gaming life active and involved. The package or the tools that I'm looking for are able to do exactly that, is to keep that live stream going, or add live streaming to the gaming group. And
who's really poised to knock this one out of the park would be Roll20.
Yeah, and I never use it.
Right. I mean, they've got the massive network. They've got the presence. They've got video. It's not video. Audio has never been.
Well, their video and audio has always been a problem. We use Hangouts. Hangouts started having a problem, and then we started using Discord.
Agreed. Right. I used to have. We have Roll20 open in one side, and Hangouts, or just usually Hangouts for the audio part, and out of character chat and whatever. But I mean, Roll20 has the infrastructure and the cash flow to seize a lot of what would be leaving from G+, especially in the D&D OSphere, right? GURPS is always going to be the odd man out, right? So I'm going to be insert colorful profane phrase, right? So as a GURPS guy, I'll be left out of that. But for the 80-90% of the D20-ish based people, Roll20 could really step in and do well with content platforms and shared I mean, for supporting games as well as some content streams, there would be an opportunity there that they could take up.
Except as the chat's reminding us, Roll20's massive public relations disaster of a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, there's that.
I'll tell you who's really in position for this is Discord. All that they have to do is put in something. Yeah,
Discord, because you've already got the rollers and the chat bots and stuff. Discord's real. If they could have the static stuff a little bit more friendly than what it is, and the scrolling chat doesn't always take over everything, that would be perfect.
Yeah, if they put in a thing where just stuff stayed there and where you could search it and stuff there, I think they're the people who've really got the ability to do it. It's kind of funny.
If their back-end infrastructure will allow it. It may not be designed in a way that they can do that.
And if they
it'll break something.
If they can fund it and monetize it. One of the interesting things is that we've sort of become the question of, well, MeWe, how well are they funded? Are they still at the venture capital stage, or are they, we're asking some questions that gamers don't normally find themselves asking about companies.
Well, we've got to be smart about this, because if we make the wrong choice, we're going to have to do it again.
It's true. I mean, there's a lot of mental, psychological, and occasionally, financial stuff involved in moving into a whole new platform.
Right. And, well, it's a gigantic. I mean, I don't have a big following, but I had 3,000 people following my role-playing game circle in G+. And now I have to convince every single darn one of them to go somewhere else, right? I got lucky to get as much as I did.
Oh, I know, yeah.
Now I got to go over the activation energy of having someone either go to Facebook or go to MeWe or go to both, and I'm tired of this, and it's G+ was nice. It linked in well with other people who read 10 might see some of my stuff, and he's got 10,000 followers or 20 or 50 or whatever the number is, right? So there was great interplay with large communities, and now it's going to be a lot of infrastructure and marketing goodwill to reestablish the size of that community.
Well, and that's one of the things that ET is call it helping with, but by creating a location where the jumping off point is happening, sort of like the outbound docks for people to exchange. Here's my address. Write to me once you reach America. Is going to sort of help streamline that a little bit too. I mean, that's what you're seeing, right, ET?
Yeah, that's what I see. That's why I'm involved in the stream where the horde is going, because you got to stay in touch somehow.
That was exactly why, because I didn't want a situation where it was just a handful of people over on Discord, a handful of people on Facebook, and I wanted things to stay centralized, so I wanted to motivate that to happen. It does raise the question, though, looking back on it, is that really a concern? Because this community at one point just spontaneously came together on its own. Don't think generally anybody said, let's get all the role players in one place. They just happened to congregate a great deal on G+ because it was useful for purposes, and it had that critical mass to attract more people. So, yeah, it will suck if, say, everybody goes to WeMe, they collapse, and we have to do it again. But on the other hand, they'll do it again. I don't think we'd actually have to put any extraordinary effort into making it happen again. These people will seek each other out, and the tools will exist.
One thing that I realized I didn't mention earlier is a lot of international people and people across the country here in the US have talked about the time zone issue, that a rapidly scrolling chat, they can't keep up with that. But the slow, constant, boom, you've got a topic on G+, they can follow that along. It may have 1,000 comments, but they could read through and find the ones they want to pick out and still follow along what's going on.
Yeah, that's a real big issue, I think, is that that's a fatal problem with Discord's current speed is that something will disappear, instantly when there are a lot of people talking. There's no way to do it unless you're in real time, and people aren't all in the same time zones. So I mean, some ability to have, and that's a lot of people have raised that in this, is that that you've got to have a place where it is, where it can be linked to, and where it can be searched out. And without those three things, it's not going to be in any way a replication of Google, of G+.
Right, and without constant sharing across all the different social media platforms, hey, here I am on MeWe, come join, that's really the only way it's going to work, unless there's the public option that they're talking about. So keeping that in the forefront until they get a public option, we're just going to, if you want to find us, we're going to be over here. But I'm also going to keep posting on G+ until it goes away. Just, there's still an audience there that are watching, might as well get the benefit out of it.
One of the ironies of the situation is that the announcement of the end of G+ has kind of reinvigorated interest in G+.
Yeah, it has.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I'm also heartened by the fact, like, oh, the technology is going away. Screw it, no big deal. We're just going to move somewhere else because, we're not all about G+. We're actually all about the role-playing game experience. I think someone mentioned that. We're just looking for a tool to recreate the role-playing face-to-face experience. And someone's going to find something that works.
I almost wonder if it is possible to have a plugin or something to a blog that would, I know when I publish a blog, I can share it to Facebook and whatever, but something a little more sophisticated where the blog content would get directed to a MeWe or to a whatever in a more friendly way than the G+ comment thing with Blogger, because that was a mess.
It'd all be about what functionality a programmer would put into it. You'd have to work with somebody and say...
Yeah, and I'm just trying to think of something that's like, because what I'd really love is to tap into that big potential community of active discussion, but mostly be creating the content in one spot so that I don't have to copy and paste or share or whatever, in order to saturate, or to be able to make those lines that you could create your content in one spot, whether it's a little quick snippet or a larger article, and it would help filter and sort to the right communities in order to not oversaturate the community, but still not basically be a link palooza or content spam.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody has even if what you're doing is just, I drew, a picture of a Hydra, here it is, you still want as many people to see it, as possible. And one of the things I've noticed about Facebook is that they seem to have really, really throttled the way in which people see things. I mean, I have noticed over the course of the last couple months that my feed has become incredibly repetitive. I will go in 2 days later and see something that is 2 days old. And it's like, I've got like freaking 300 friends. You cannot possibly be telling me.
I was always seeing the same exact person at the top of my feed, and I had to go change. I don't want to see them first. I want to see them in the whatever the order is.
Right.
And Facebook keeps changing their algorithm. Oh, you obviously want to see it this way. I'm like, no, I don't.
Right.
I want to see it the way I want to see it.
And well, people in hell want ice water too. That doesn't mean they're getting it.
Yeah.
Hey, you must have my father. He said that all the time.
Yeah, but that's the issue with Facebook, is because of the algorithm and new sorting. I have a friend of mine who was trying to do a targeted advertisement for his martial arts school to people in Madison, Wisconsin. And people in Africa were seeing it. People in, Australia were seeing it. And nobody in
Ukraine,
Madison was
yeah.
seeing it
It's
because
crazy.
they were controlling and made a mistake on the algorithm. And that's going to be the big issue with a Facebook-based approach, is that anything bigger than this is my group, and it's hard to link those together. Anything bigger than that is going to run into the problem that our role-playing game community is not controlling the direction and the parsing or the curating. Someone in the comment stream used that word, of the content. The algorithm is going to be provided for you in a way that gets them the most ad revenue.
Yeah, I work with a lot of, or I talk to a lot of people in the YouTube, the D&D YouTube sphere. And a lot of them run their communities around around Facebook, but a lot of them are abandoning it because it's a nightmare, and because Facebook actively hides your posts from the majority of the people who follow you, unless you pay them money. So if you have like 1,000 people following you, you put out like a video, you make a Facebook post about it, none of them will see it. And Facebook will be like, how much do you want to pay to make them see it?
Right. It's all about this.
It's crazy. So like it actually hides it from people.
Right.
Also, if you post YouTube videos, Facebook hates YouTube. And so they actively drop the YouTube videos lower in the rankings.
There was actually a post by Dyson a few days ago.
I saw that, yeah.
He contrasted his different experience with G Plus and Facebook. And G Plus was, you've developed a following. Let's show you how to encourage it. And Facebook basically took the following he built and held it hostage.
Yeah.
And that really highlights that Facebook is not a service that you're using. You're a resource that they're using.
Yeah, if you're not paying, if you're getting something for free, you're the product, not the customer.
Yeah, because Facebook assumes that you have to use them, because it's mostly targeting larger companies that feel like they have to be on Facebook, and therefore you can hold them hostage. But for smaller, companies, it's just a total waste of time.
Right, and that's where I find, and Matt Jackson gave me a well-deserved poke about, I was designing my marketing and my approach to trying to get the word out about my games around 3,000 people that had decided to follow my role-playing game circles. But that's the thing, is that now I have to figure out how to get out. There's the GURPS group on Facebook has about 1,000 people in it, but I'm not convinced that all of them are going to see anything that I write because of the algorithms that we just talked about. So it's tough, right?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Facebook has been pissing me off more and more over, I don't know, the last 6 months or so. And I've got a pretty thick hide for understanding that I'm using something for free. And that means I'm not going to get everything. But, again, at the point that we're reaching is very much like Ben described. And that, pointed out about, from Dyson's post also, is that, there's a point where it's enough is enough. And so, even though I'm not on G+, this could be something that causes me to sort of migrate from Facebook, although I have serious reservations about MeWe. But, it's an interesting question, because it's a lot easier to run, if what you're trying to do is tell people about what you're doing. It's really easier if you've just got one place that you have to type it in. I mean, going to Facebook and then going to Google, that's rough. And that's one of the things that Doug was talking about too, is that if you have to multiply post after post after post just to get the basic group of people to hear, hey, I'm putting up a video about cats. It might be time for a jump to somewhere new. It's just that MeWe is really, really young, and then
Well, and for whatever reason, different segments of population, like G+, like Facebook, etc., and you really still have to stay engaged with all those different platforms if you're on the blogger, YouTuber, creator side of things.
Yeah, I think we all just sit and think about that. for a moment.
No, I don't
Exactly.
That's
I
what
don't
somebody
think
says.
with it. We're stuck with it.
It's absolutely true and a giant pain in my ass. I don't have to think about that. He's right.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's why I play role-playing games.
It is a question raised is, well, do you feel success on those terms is worth that? Do you feel it's worth engaging with those things that are actively unpleasant or opposed to your principles just to get that following for whatever reason? Or would you rather do the thing you want to do, and if you get a following, that's a nice bonus?
Mm-hmm.
But I think in reality, people sort of mix those two.
Yes. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not a clear decision.
Well, and trying to figure out why I've got so much bigger following on one platform than another, it's like it doesn't make sense. Why is this group double this platform?
Which one's the bigger one, Larry? Is it Google's bigger?
Twitter.
Twitter.
I'm coming up on 700 Twitter followers, and it's just like, what am I? It's just I'm engaging. I'm doing something right on Twitter, but it doesn't translate to the other platforms.
It's just that much bigger.
Maybe you shoot yourself.
I guess.
Maybe you shoot yourself in the foot somewhere beyond 140 characters.
Oh, it's more than that now,
Yeah.
but probably.
All right, I think I gotta take off, guys.
Thank you very, very
Thanks,
much
Ben.
for being on, Ben.
No problem. It's great.
I also have to, my time is occupied
Okay.
coming up here in a few minutes. So I appreciate the invite. Thanks for being part of this discussion.
Thanks very much, Jay.
We'll see you guys on the other side.
Okay, now that they're gone, we can talk about it.
That was the plan all along, right?
All right, so we've got good stuff. I'm actually starting to run out of steam a little bit. So maybe I misjudged the length of time that we were going to talk about this, although the chat room is still very, very active.
About 10 minutes before I have to go myself.
Okay.
Yeah, it sounds like about 7:30 is going to be a natural stopping point for. Well, I have to go to an event as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's. I guess I probably do need to keep going. Just given on the people, maybe still tuning in to do it. But I think what what I'll do is sort of wrap up sort of where we reached. So let's go through what. Doug, what do you think are the most important issues with this? I mean, let's just go to the nutshell stuff and get what it is that you guys are thinking about in terms of this. So, Doug, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so my biggest concern with the demise of Google Plus over the next 10 weeks is trying to rebuild and reestablish the following that I developed on G Plus. Because that was where and to try and reach the people who will have heard about my stuff, and that's a very selfish outlook on that, because I'm both trying to participate in the gaming thing, but also trying to build a gaming company that would allow me to not do a day job anymore and do my hobby for life.
Well, except it's the same. It's the same thing for everybody. It's like I was saying. I mean, if you just write up a monster, you're still somebody who wants everybody, as many people as possible,
and
to see it.
That's
so
absolutely
it's the same
fair.
issue.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. How is it that you get your stuff? Like Mal Reynolds said, I don't see no problem with getting stuff to people that need them, and that's really the key, right? Is the fragmentation and diaspora, and then assimilation or coagulation of a community that hopefully is as vibrant as the one that we left. But it'd be awfully nice if instead of G plus role-playing games and RPGs, which had significant overlap, if that coalesced into one larger community, right, then that would be kind of an interesting self-assembly. But really, for me, the biggest thing is getting to that crowd of people and finding a platform that I can find people and people can find me, but not have it be something like where you have to cut and copy and paste and irritate people in the attempt to get something out there. Because I know that's the biggest complaint that I've seen about both Kickstarters and blog posts or whatever from various people. It's like, why am I seeing this 12 times? Well, it's because you're in 12 communities that have partially overlapping interest, but it doesn't make it less annoying on your feed.
E.T., let me ask you, what do you think are the most, what's your nutshell? What's your takeaway on the discussion and on the issue?
Social networks are an obvious tool that have done a lot to help tabletop gaming grow and get people together. So it is important that we look for places to move to keep those communities going. However, we have to be mindful that the communities or services we use may shape us in return for various reasons, whether that's their technological limitations or active policies on their part, or even just economic forces. So that concern has to be kept in mind, and the move will happen. We will keep using it somehow because the utility is just too obvious.
Thank you, Jim. Mr. Wampler, what do you think are the main takeaways on the issue and the discussion?
The main takeaway is everybody relax and don't panic. I mean, you know, there were fans and communities of fans doing this stuff before the internet. All that we've got now are embarrassment of riches and new tools that just enable whole new swaths of people to contribute and whole new levels that they can contribute at. And this will all sort itself out.
And Tim Kask has just joined the chat. Hello, Tim. You're getting right to the Tim. You're joining us right at the point where everybody is exhausted and we're starting to wrap up.
He called me and I wouldn't answer it. Take the call. I told him.
Oh, that's why he's on the chat. Now. He's probably on the chat saying, you know, he's whatever it is that he needs you to do. He's going.
Damn it, Wampler, where are you? I need something.
Okay, so that's Jim's takeaway is relax. Larry, what do you think is the
I think all the prior comments were all right on the number there, especially Jim's comment. You know, we all need to grab a towel and be a cool fruit and don't panic. You know, it's not the end of the world. It's just the end of the service, and it's not here yet. We've got plenty of advance warning. So unless they decide tomorrow to change it to a different time frame, you know, the only way I see that happening is if they see everybody, quote, everybody that was using it dropping off, then they might say, well, since everybody's already left, we're going to turn off the lights tomorrow. That's possible, but we at least know, and there is a way to get your personal stuff downloaded out of G+. The good thing about MeWe is they've got a real easy spot where you can go in and download all the stuff that you upload there. So if you decide after trying it, it's not for you, you can pull out. If it looks like it's going under, you can pull out and have your stuff. So, and there may be another option that comes along that meets our need. That's what I'm keeping my eyes open for. Is MeWe the best right now? Maybe it looks that way. But
do you think it's a dangerous thing that people are adopting MeWe so quickly?
No, because I did. Well, you know,
I think like that
in some ways it could be too much groupthink, but yeah. I'm also a techie guy. I want to figure out, what is this thing? Everybody's talking about it. Let's go check it out. And so that's my interest, is checking it out. And I like a lot of what I see. What's really surprised me is I've got people on the extreme right wing of the political spectrum saying they're all a bunch of communists, and people on the extreme left wing of the political spectrum saying they're all Nazis at MeWe. And I'm like, they can't both be true. It's you know, the whole, everything's got to be about politics all the time. I don't understand that. I was raised to be polite and respect everybody, and it doesn't matter what you look like or where you're from or who your friends are, and that you may be friends with or related to somebody that has beliefs that, well, that's old Uncle so-and-so, we just kind of ignore what he's saying. Everybody's in that situation, or at least everybody I know is. But some people, evidently, their life is totally different than mine, and I don't understand. I try.
You know, and I think it is a valid point, though, that, you know, of getting painted with a brush,
Yes.
regardless of what the reality is. And so, you know, I'm not pointing any fingers at people who have that set of concerns. Douglas, you're saying that you're going to have to head out. So
yeah, I got to head out. I got to pretend to be an officiant at somebody's wedding 20th wedding anniversary.
Oh, cool.
Awesome, man.
All right. So thank you
good.
everybody for having me and listening to me spew for a couple of minutes. I've enjoyed the conversation, as I always do.
And I will continue to, you know, give you absolutely no warning and tell you in the middle of a video that I'm going to, you know, send you a link and that I need you to join the video because you're that guy.
Ambush away, man. I love it.
All right.
Good night.
Take care, Doug. Okay, so yes, we've got yeah, there's a political angle involved, and so far, I don't think people are even entirely clear on it. I think it's a valid concern of getting potentially painted with a brush, but on the other hand, from the standpoint of is it a good platform? It's not like we're having, you know, dinner with the people who run Facebook or G+ now. Anyway, it's the question of what does Facebook do for me and what does G+ do for me, and so, you know, evaluating the MeWe platform on that side is a matter of evaluating the platform, and I will be talking tomorrow with Jason, their product director. So and it is an issue that I'll raise with him as a question, although I'm not going to be, you know, brutal with him because I don't want to feel like he walked into a bear trap, but you know. All right, let's go ahead, guys. I think we on the panel, since we've been talking for 2.5 hours, I think we have pretty much exhausted the bright ideas and the thoughts and the topics. So we're going to go ahead, I think, and call it a little bit earlier than originally planned. And since I'm not, you know, CBS or NBC, I'm allowed to sort of be like, I'm done now. And I think we'll do that. But thank you very, very much for watching, everybody. I hope it's been helpful. And I will have the show at 6 Central tomorrow when I am talking to the product director from MeWe. And we'll get more details about MeWe and what they're planning on doing, what they're able to do now. We'll hopefully draw that together with some good information.
Thanks for having us, Matt.
Absolutely. Any closing words, Jim or Larry?
Tim, I'll be calling you in just a minute.
All right. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. And, you know, no matter what kind of Dungeons and Dragons it is that you play, imagine the hell out of it.